Now that we have Python installed and our tools set up, it's time to start writing some actual Python code. But before we fire up our text editor and just start diving in, we're first going to use Python's interpreted mode in the command line interface to see how easy it is to write and run Python. So here I've started up my terminal program, and you can do the same on your computer, doesn't matter if it's Windows or Mac. And I'm going to type Python by itself and hit return. And remember, on the Mac, you're going to have to do Python 3. Okay? So I'm going to type Python, and when I do this, you can see that this places me into Python's interpreted mode. Right? So right here is the version number for Python, and then there's some help text, right? And then there's this little 3-angle bracket prompt right here. Now in this mode, I can just simply type some Python code, and it will run immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and type 2 plus 2. And you can see that the answer comes back as 4. Now, Python is an interpreted language like some other common ones in use today, for example, like JavaScript in the browser. In other words, it's not like Java or C or C++. The application does not need to be compiled and then built into an executable before you can run it. The Python interpreter simply takes each line of code as it comes across it and then interprets and executes the code. And in this case, it's simply taking the numerical expression 2 plus 2, evaluating it, and it gets 4 back. All right, let's try a different line of code. I'm going to write print, and then a parentheses and a quotes, and type in hello world, and then quotes, and then close parentheses. Right, I'll hit enter. And now you can see that I've executed the simple Python statement print, which is a built-in Python function, and we'll learn more about functions, along with the string of characters hello world. Don't worry about understanding all of this right now. It will become clearer as we go through the course. All right, let's try one more thing. I'm going to write name equals input. I'm going to type what is your name, question mark, and then close quote and parentheses. And when I hit enter, you can see that now Python is running the input function, which gives me a chance to enter a value. So I'll type Joe and hit enter. So now I've created a variable, and that variable is called name, which contains the value that this input function asked for. So if I just type name by itself, you can see the value that the name variable contains, which is Joe. Now, all of this is not how you would normally write and run your real Python programs. I mean, obviously, real programs are going to be a lot more complex than this, but you can use the Python interpreter in command line mode to try out some simple things. Okay, now let's type the word exit, and with an open and close parentheses, so we're actually calling the exit function, and that will exit us out of the Python interpreter and then back into the terminal command line. Okay, so now we've seen how to write and execute some basic Python statements. Let's start up our code editor and write our first Python program. And I'm using Visual Studio Code, but again, you can use whatever editor you like. So here we are in VS Code, and I'm going to open up chapter 2, and here in chapter 2, I'm going to open up a file named hello world start.py. So let's start off by printing out a hello world message, right? So I'm going to type print, and you can see that as I'm writing my code, right, here in VS Code, I'm getting statement completion right as I'm typing, and that's because of the Python extension that we installed earlier. So I'm going to write print, and then I'm going to write hello world, and that's pretty much it for that line. And then let's also have the user enter their name. So I'm going to write name equals input, and I'll write what is your name, and then I'll print it's nice to meet you, and then outside the closing quotes, I'm going to put a comma, and then name. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, all right? And we can start up a terminal window and go into the directory for the example file and run it like we did before. Or if you're using VS Code and you've got the Python extension installed, you can also click this little icon up here, which it says, you can see when I hover it, it says run Python file in terminal. Or I can right click in the source code and choose run Python file in terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see that when I do that, the program is running in VS Code's built-in terminal here, right? And you can see that hello world is being printed, and here's the input for what is your name, so I'll type in Joe, and it says nice to meet you, Joe, and then the program exits. So far, so good. Let's change a couple of things. So I'm going to click on this little trash can and get rid of this interpreter right here, and what I'm going to do is define a function. We'll learn more about functions later in the chapter, so just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to write def, which defines a function, and I'm going to call the function main. And then I give it an open and close parentheses, and then a colon, right? Now, when I do that, you can see that this little red squiggle appears here. That means I'm getting an error. You can see it says expected indented block. So what I'm going to do is indent each of these lines under the function main. So I'm going to hit the tab each time, okay? And it's important that all of these lines be indented using the same number of spaces. And you can see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces of indenting. Doesn't matter if it's 2 or 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. They all have to be the same. Now, again, I don't expect you to understand all of this right away. We're going to be going into this more deeply as the course goes on. But what I'm doing here is defining a function. And that function contains our print and input statements. So I'm grouping all of these statements into one function that I can call elsewhere in my program. The Python syntax is a little bit different than other languages you might be used to. So Python actually uses the indentation level of the lines of code to indicate where that code belongs. So because under the definition for the main function, I've got each of these lines indented by 4 spaces, that indicates to the Python interpreter that these lines of code belong to the function main. All right, so now I need to add some code to actually execute the main function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write if double underscore name and then double underscore again is equal to, and then inside quotes, double underscore main and then double underscore, and then a colon. And then once again, I have to indent. I'm going to call main. So why do we need to do this, and what does it do? So unlike in C# or Java or other programming languages, Python does not automatically look for a specific function when the program starts. So what's happening here is this line of code right here, line 11, is checking to see that this module, this file of Python code is loaded, and the interpreter has assigned the double underscore name variable, the value of main. That means that this Python program was executed as a main program. It was started from the command line or invoked from the Python executable somehow, and therefore this function right here, the main function, should be called. Now the reason I need to do this is because Python code can be used multiple ways. My code in this file can be run as its own program, but I can also build a reusable module that can be included inside of other Python programs. So if I were using this code in another program, I wouldn't want all this code to start running when it was imported into the other program, because that would cause problems. So lines 11 and 12 help distinguish between when a Python file is being included in another program or when that Python code is being executed as its own program. So in this case, the file is being executed as a program, and this if condition right here will evaluate to true, and then the main function will be called. All right, so once again, let's save, and we're going to go ahead and right click and choose run Python file in the terminal, and you can see that you're getting the output just as we would expect.